Release the Kraken.
Good morning, Hockey Nation. It is the morning show and the Detroit Red Wings update. I don't know if we are counting what edition this is, but this is the edition where we ended October on kind of a sour note. And there's been quite a few rough games for Detroit Red Wings lately, accented by the Halloween massacre. 8-3 loss to the Buffalo Sabres, so we will talk about that. There's been, in the last 4 games, the Red Wings have let in 11, 19, 20 goals in 4 games. So that's not good news for a team that was trying to improve their defense. Good morning, RJ. Thank you for joining. And please do hit the likes and hit subscribes. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. And we are excited to also discuss the rumor that's going around. Started probably, there's a lot of, like, if you want to see some crazy stuff on the Toronto Maple Leafs, look at the star.com and any Toronto media, because they're losing their minds at the moment. Hello, Corey Hill. We haven't seen you in a while. Ottawa is trying to find their footing as well. They made a lot of offseason moves. So we can, if we have some time, we can look at that as well. Boston Bruins goalie Jeremy Swayman, news from RJ that his left leg is hurt. That's not good. He hasn't had a great start. Olmark, I think, has had a better start than him. He's kind of struggled. So I don't know if this is just on top of the problems or if this is a factor in the problems up to this point. And we will preview this game, which is tomorrow, Washington versus Detroit Red Wings. Coach is in Thailand, probably sleeping right now. That's where he is, Corey. So typically in the morning show, he's been leaving the steering wheel in my capable hands. So I appreciate you joining. Well, without further ado, this is the big rumor that's out there. So what do you guys think of this? This all stems, I think, it started with an article by Nick Kypreos on the star.com, I think it is. Yeah, the star.com. I looked around for it. And the rumor is because Detroit Red Wings have not signed Dylan Larkin beyond this season, so I believe he's an unrestricted free agent. We'll take a look at the contracts. But the rumor is that, there is a discussion of swapping captains between the struggling Vancouver Canucks and, kind of struggling Detroit Red Wings. Even though the Detroit Red Wings have a winning record, which the Canucks absolutely do not, Detroit's been really struggling. They've lost consecutive 6-2, lost 5 to New Jersey, lost 5-1 to Boston. They won a game 2-1 against the Wild, which was good, but then they get blown out 8-3, which we'll take a look at that game. It is just bloody murder. Not a good game for the Red Wings. Let's take a look at that. But, on the heels of that, the report is that Larkin is looking for Matthew Barzal money, which is interesting. Matthew Barzal got, $9.2 million. And if you look at his contract, Larkin's coming off a multiple year $6.1 million, which at the time a lot of people thought was really expensive, but now it's looking really cheap. So to re-sign him at $9 million, would you re-sign Dylan Larkin at $9 million? Do you think Bo Horvat's going to get $9 million? Because I don't, and maybe that's what Detroit's thinking is they get a player that's maybe a year older. I think he's a year older than Larkin. One's 25 and one's 26. I can't remember if there's 1 or 2 years between these guys, but it's pretty close. And they probably have similar offensive stats. And I don't think anybody confuses Bo Horvat with being a number one center. But in Detroit, Dylan Larkin is definitely the number one center. And I've always kind of wondered, like, is he really a number one center? And I think on most teams he probably isn't. So this is kind of an interesting discussion. What do you think about this? If you take a look at their offensive production career-wise, somewhat close. It's not far off. So if you look, one guy, Bo Horvat, was drafted in the 2013 draft. He went 9th overall, and then 15th overall was Dylan Larkin. He made the team fairly early here. And if you look at their offensive stats, it's not very far off. So one guy has 369 points in 513 games. That's Dylan Larkin. He's got 11 points on the season, including 5 goals, 6 assists. And he had a good year last year, 31 goals, 38 assists, 69 points in 71 games. So that's like pretty much point-a-game pace. He's a little ahead of that this year, and I think he's played very well. And I think he's matured his game in the sense that, for me, early on, the problem with Larkin is he would carry the puck way too much. And I wonder if that was just like a factor of, who he was playing with and not having a lot of options. But you see, since he's played with Lucas Raymond and some of these other more talented players, he's playing well with Kubalik. Tyler Bertuzzi, when healthy, it's really helped. He doesn't carry the puck as much. And I think that's really important because he's very fast and we know he's like an elite skater. On the flip side, obviously, Bo Horvat, he can score goals. And he's scored 178 goals to Larkin's 152, but not too far off, like one guy's played 582 games and one's played 513. So I think personally, I can't see Detroit making this move unless they're really up against it and they don't think they can re-sign Larkin. But what it does is it does show, it highlights a comparable, right? Like there's a year between these guys. Their stats are very similar. Everyone thinks Bo Horvat is a good captain, but he's a second-line center, I think. And is Dylan Larkin a number one center at $9 million, or is he a second-line center at $7 million, which is probably what Bo Horvat will get? I mean, Bo Horvat's having a very good start to the season despite the horrible start of the Vancouver Canucks. Like you would normally expect Elias Peterson to be the star on that team, especially after signing his contract. Quinn Hughes has not necessarily been healthy. So lots of expectations there, but this is really interesting. Like, I think if anything, it's trying to frame Dylan Larkin as being the same value as Bo Horvat. So if that's all it accomplishes, then it'll be really good. Because, maybe Dylan Larkin gets an $8 million contract. If he's 11 points in 9 games and that pace continues forever, you're really excited because that probably puts him at a 40-goal pace, right? Like, I don't know. Is that Dylan Larkin? It's a good question. And if you look at their salaries up till now, very, very close, like $5.5 million for Horvat. You've got to think that he'll get 6 or 7. And then Larkin at 6.1, maybe he'll get 7 or 8. And maybe that's a good comparison. He's a year younger than Horvat. His offensive production right now is a little bit ahead, but not much. I don't know what that means. Yeah, that's weird comment, so I'm not even going to post that. Jacqueline Belcito is named the President Centers Community Foundation. Okay, well, that's interesting. Tonight, Phil Ayers against the Maple Leafs, Penguins versus Buffalo. Yes, those are games that are coming up. What do you think about this rumor that, started by Nick Kypreos, came out of the star.com? All right, we're going to go back and look at this other game. Please comment if you think that's a realistic rumor or if it's more just about bargaining. All right, well, let's go back to Halloween night and the scary, scary, scary game that happened. Detroit Red Wings are 4-3-2, and the Sabres are 6-3. This was really a battle of the 3rd place and the 4th place team in the Atlantic, but that has since switched. As Tampa's moved up, it's very tight in the standings in the Atlantic. Detroit absolutely thumped by the Sabres. And I think what we saw on display was 2 things. One, this night was all about Tage Thompson. He really broke out. Jeff Skinner, who we had said, hey, he hasn't really done much, and this is his off year, gets a 2nd goal. Jack Quinn got his 1st goal of the season. So those were good things for Buffalo. And Tage Thompson, I think he ended with 4 or 5 points in this game. So let's see, he had 1 goal. There's 2 assists. So that's 2 goals and 2 assists right there. Keep going. Did you get another? Oh my God. 5-point night, 6-point night, 6-point night for Tage Thompson. So he really padded his stats. Good morning, Kelly. Yeah, the Kypreos article on Larkin and Bo is interesting. So I don't know what you think about that. I think if anything, it just frames the value of Dylan Larkin as being very comparable to Bo Horvat. And I don't think anybody's saying Bo Horvat's a number 1 centerman. So Dylan Larkin seeking $9 million a year. Maybe this puts pressure on either moving him and getting someone they think is at the right salary, so they have room to add players down the line. Detroit's got a lot of cap space, but one way to chew that up is to dole out too much money. And Larkin's statement after the game, yeah, he shouldn't be happy. It was terrible. If it's true, we all know about it. Know about what? The rumor? Oh, I think everybody's talking about this. So if that's your thought, Michael, I don't know. I think that it's very possible. Like, neither of these guys is signed. And if you're Stevie Yzerman, you're going, listen, I'm not going to sign Bo Horvat to $9 million. I would sign him to 7, maybe 7.5, 7.8. And is it better to have a Bo Horvat as your second line center and then work towards getting a guy that's a number 1? You got to think Detroit's record is going to get worse just based upon this recent performance. Like, they've lost 6-2 to the New Jersey Devils. Devils are surging, and they scored, I think, 5 goals last night in their win. They've had a multiple. So the Devils are playing well. So I don't know if that's a great comparison, but come on, you can't be letting in 5 goals, 6 goals, 5 goals, 8 goals. They had 1 game where they let in 1 goal against Minnesota. So in the last 4 games, they've let in 20 goals. 5 goals a game, which is not good. You're not making the playoffs, and this record of 4-3-2 is going to keep dropping. Plus, they had the 2 overtime losses. So Buffalo and Detroit seem to be going like this, like separating. Canucks prioritize Miller over Horvat. Yeah, and that's interesting, isn't it? But that's your captain, obviously. I think JT Miller they see as a big leader in the dressing room. He's older than Horvat, though, and his offensive production is better than Horvat. But these are both really important players to that team, I think. And I think the thing that's missing is Quinn Hughes. You have NHL opportunity. That's how I found out. Oh, cool. Okay. So yeah, it's interesting. Does that mean they're going to get Dylan Larkin and be able to sign him? I think that either of these teams, if this actually happened, it would be very surprised. Plus, if you look at the contract, there's this little thing called NTC on Larkin. He ain't going anywhere. Now, maybe in the off season, but like, why would he even agree to this? Like, just go out into the market and get signed. So I don't see this actually happening. I think it's more of a way to frame the value of Dylan Larkin as not being worth 9.2, but maybe 8 or 8.5. And, so it's an interesting rumor that gets out there. Interesting that they would use Kypreos to put that idea out there, though. So back to the Halloween massacre, because that's what this was. This, was all Buffalo, which is kind of crazy. Buffalo looking really strong. Detroit, we know, has some missing firepower with Verona out, with Bertuzzi out. Rasmussen has finished his 2-game suspension, so that definitely hurt them. He's becoming a really important player for them, even just to have that big body down the middle. Soderblom's kind of fallen off a little bit, and they need some production from him. And then they haven't had Oscar Sundqvist, so that's hurt them. And the defense has been less than stellar, which was what the coach was really trying to address with structure. So not a great night for them. Dylan Larkin obviously upset as the captain. The positives in this game, I would say Ollie Matta continues to produce offensively, so that's good. Andrew Kopp does not look good to me. He's just he's not real creative. He's just workmanlike, and he's just, he's missed camp with injuries. So that didn't really help, but it was good that David Perron got on the board, and that kind of gave some life. That made the game 4-2 and then 4-3. But man, after that, it was all Sabres. And a lot of this is goaltending. Like, you see the problem with Nedeljkovic. This guy is just this reflex athletic, smaller goalie, and it just gives up way too many chances, way too much space in the net. They need a bigger goalie. Husso and Nedeljkovic's stats are like night and day, and this is what I kind of thought at the beginning of the year, and I was saying, like, just you're going to see that basically Husso is going to keep getting more games over Nedeljkovic eventually because there's just such a difference between these guys. So 6-point night for Tage Thompson. Jeff Skinner gets his second of the year. Dylan Cousins gets his fourth. Rasmus Asplund gets on the board, and so does Peyton Krebs. So those are good things for the Buffalo Sabres. To me, the big story is watching Rasmus Dahlin. This guy is like becoming everything you ever dreamed he would become. He's 22, 23, former first overall draft pick. You thought you would see a lot more from Owen Power, and he's been solid, but not really producing offense. That's not Rasmus Dahlin. Rasmus Dahlin is like, he's so smooth. He's so smart. He's pinching. He's opening up opportunities. He's like a fourth forward, but not giving up anything defensively. I mean, he looks great. Like, if beginning of the year you would have said, I think he'll challenge for the Norris, I would have thought, maybe not yet, but man, he might be now. He might be like top 2 or 3 defensemen in the league if he keeps playing like this. And I don't see any reason why not. Detroit Red Wings reassigned Giovanni Smith. So that's interesting. That's because Rasmussen has come back. I thought Gio played well, and I think he sparked them in the Wild game. But, you know, it's going to be tough for Gio to stay in the lineup. I assume that means he has to clear waivers. Yeah, 5 forwards still manage to win games. Juggling goalies every night doesn't work for Detroit. Agreed. It's not a good setup. Ottawa Senators trade rumors around Zaitsev. Chychrun rumors those are never going to go away. I don't know. I don't understand why Arizona wants to trade Chychrun so much. It's so hard to get a defenseman like that. They got him so late in the draft. I don't think I would be too aggressive. Maybe. But the deadline's a ways off, guys. We're nowhere near the deadline. That's like, what, February? I think the trade deadline's in February or March or something, isn't it? Maybe it's later than that even. Like, we're really early in the season. We're, kind of 9-10 games into the season for most teams. So I think this is a ways off. Arizona, they won. They won a game. I was surprised they won at home in front of 5,000 fans at that arena. So the big story for me in Arizona is Dylan Guenther. Like, Dylan Guenther is going to be competing for Calder Trophy along with Logan Thompson and along with Matty Benier. Like, those to me seem like the 3 guys that are going to do it. Like, there's other guys that should be in there. Shane Wright is obviously nowhere near the player that we thought he would be ready for, the NHL, but he's not. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see. So he's not even in the consideration there. But Matty Benier he's looking like he's really much better than I thought. I mean, you love his engine, and he's getting great offensive production. But Dylan Guenther is no slouch. He looks like John Tavares. And that was my comparison for him. When you look at him in the NHL, like, he's probably maybe a little bit better skater at Tavares the same age, but he's got those same hands. So that's good news for Arizona. I just don't know why they would move Chychrun. It doesn't make sense to me. He's not that old. All right, so the Thursday matchup, we'll see Detroit face up against the Washington Capitals. And the Capitals coming off a 3-2 overtime loss to a very, very dominating Las Vegas Golden Knights. Like, the Golden Knights, I almost said the Thunder. That's the old IHL team. But the Golden Knights are looking great under Bruce Cassidy. Everybody's producing over there that you would expect. Well, not everybody, but, you definitely are seeing Jack Eichel produce, which is a good thing. Are they doing this all without Mark Stone? Like, do they need this guy? I don't know. So that was a good game. Washington is going to be really tough to play against. And if you look at Detroit's schedule, things do not get easier. So Washington's 5-4-2, but I think that they're on the come up. You're right. Shane Pinto is legitimately also, that's the other guy. He's done pretty dang well. And with Josh Norris probably lost for the season, Shane Pinto is definitely going to be in consideration for Rookie of the Year. And so far, I think he's second in rookie scoring. I think he's ahead, actually, of Guenther by 2 points. All right, so Washington Capitals coming up on Thursday. There will be a live, I believe, with Coach Frenchie in the evening for this game. Ovechkin's not tearing it up, but does have 3 goals in the season as he pursues his long-term career goal of catching Wayne Gretzky. The big story for Detroit in the last 5 games, 6 points from Dylan Larkin. Kubalik has had 4 assists in those 5 games, but Kubalik's the leading scorer, I believe, still with 11 or 12 points. Dylan Strome working out pretty well in Washington, and we know that they're missing Backstrom, and I don't know, like the coach is getting by with decent goaltending, good structure, like very un-Washington like numbers and approach. So, but I think Ovechkin actually has more goals than this on the season, right? Let's just check something. I think that's just the last 5 games. So what's Ovi's stats? Guys, he's 37 years old. It's crazy. 5 goals, 4 assists in 11 games. So he's on pace for 40 goals. You got to think he'll get back up in there. Random question. From your own perspective, had the best CHL career, but sadly, they never even really matured. Oh, so many guys. I don't know. I have to think about that one. I mean, there's been a lot of guys that have had great CHL careers, and it just hasn't translated. A lot of the Quebec guys, like look at guys like Angelo Esposito or Alexander Daigle had very good careers. Go way back to when Luc Robitaille was with the Hull Olympique, and his teammate Guy Rouleau was like an absolute superstar in the Quebec Major Junior League, and I don't know if he played a single NHL game, so that was a little rough. I don't think Jake's there. Jake looks very good. I just don't know if he's going to have the offensive pop. It looks like he's focused on his defensive play. He's very patient with the puck, and he makes really smart decisions. I love Jake Sanderson. I think there's a huge piece of the Ottawa Senators lineup, so he could be in consideration. But right now, I think it's the other 4 guys we talked about. Logan Thompson is going to just keep getting more and more games. That was kind of my pick for Calder. And if you look at, he's got like a sub 2 goals against average. I think it's like 1.69 with a high save percentage, and he's going to get more and more workload. There's nobody else in Vegas, and they're like 8-2-0 or 8-2-1. So you got to think Logan Thompson right now is in the lead there. Matty Beniers is really close because he's definitely the best player in Seattle, and they're playing decent. And Pinto's got good production. Gunther's going to get good production. Probably won't get the attention he deserves, but man, he looks really good for Arizona. Sanderson could be in the discussion. I don't see why not, but I just think the other guys are probably quite a bit ahead of him. All right, well, for Detroit fans, we're looking ahead. You got to think Husso at 926 save percentage, 3-1-1 is night and day with 496 goals against average and 870 save percentage for Nedeljkovic. At some point, they got to say Husso gives us a way better opportunity in net. Charlie Lindgren didn't look terrible last night. He led 1 goal. I was kind of not sure what happened there, but I think that was the Eichel goal. It was actually a pretty hard shot to see. I think he was going to the right and went to left. But other than that, like 1-1-1, 3 goals against is not ideal over there, and 919 is pretty good though. And Darcy Kemper at 4-3-1 and 922. You got to give. I don't know who's starting this game. I think it'll be Husso for Detroit. I could see them. They just played Lindgren, I think, last night. So you got to think maybe Kemper's going up against Detroit. And yeah, I love Jake Sanderson. There's a lot of good players over in Ottawa that are young. But I think right now those guys at the moment are definitely ahead. But hey, it's a long season. And it's a tough position. I think he's logging a lot of ice though. I mean, how many rookie defensemen are like that? We saw that injury last year that kind of sidelined him. He is such an excellent. A lot of people are going to be like, wow, I wish we grabbed him. I think he went pretty high. He went like 6th, right? So I think some people were like, oh, he went really high, but you see why now. He's going to be a big frame. He's filling out. He's such a smooth skater, so patient with the puck. That's a really good player. All right, so for the Red Wings, looking ahead to the month of November, this does not get easier. Washington Capitals are going to be real tough to play against. New York Islanders are, depending on which goalie's in, is the only factor here. If Varlamov's in, then maybe they have a shot. They're still, the Red Wings still got a rough situation on the roster. The following week, they play the Rangers. So you look at this. They have back-to-back. They have 1 night's rest between Thursday and Saturday game. They play back-to-back 1 p.m. and then on Saturday, and then 5 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, Rangers and Islanders, or Islanders then Rangers. They have a day off, and then they're back at home versus Montreal. They have a day off, and they're back at home versus the Rangers. And then they have a day off, and then they go all the way to Los Angeles to play the Kings. That's going to be rough, man. 5th. Yeah, it was 5th. So I couldn't remember if it was 5th or 6th. But, I mean, you're seeing why he was picked so high. He's such a good player. So this is going to be next week's going to be a really rough week. And I don't think I think you're going to see Detroit's record drop. Like they could go over. Right now, like the best chance they have is against Montreal. LA's had a really good defensive game the other night, and Quick was great in net. So that's going to be a tough game. Gabe Vilardi, by the way, third in goal scoring in the NHL. Would you have expected that? He's got 8 goals on the season. Connor McDavid, I think, is leading with 11. Can't remember who's after him, but Gabe Vilardi third in the NHL in goal scoring. See how long that lasts. All right, so what games are coming up? I don't know if you want to take a look at any of the other ones. What do you think about the Dylan Larkin rumors? Let's take a look here. What do we have on tap tonight? Quickly. Oh, boy. A lot of games last night, by the way. Tampa beating Ottawa 4-3. What did you think about that game? I think Ottawa's last in the Atlantic. But the Atlantic's very tough, but still, you don't want to see them in last. I think Claude Giroux's been pretty good so far. Obviously, Tkachuk's playing real well. Not having Josh Norris is not helpful. But you can see Tampa's just going to slowly climb back up. Besides the Wings, which do you find most? I always check out Edmonton and the Kings. Those are probably the next two. I've been kind of following Chicago a little bit. It was a miracle that Ottawa was in that game, badly being outshot. Tampa was really like all over them. And Tampa's like, it's like muscle memory for Tampa. They were, that's what I said before. They're going to leapfrog a lot of teams, and they already have. They're in third, and they're just going to keep moving towards first. Florida's the team that I'd be concerned about. Like, Florida is like, this is a typical Paul Maurice team. They're going to be a yo-yo. Like, I just don't understand this move as him as your coach. It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't think it's going to work out. I would have rather had Mike Babcock. They would have been way more consistent. He would have been closer to a Joel Quenneville caliber coach than Paul Maurice. No offense, Paul Maurice, but I mean, I think you're just going to have frustrating inconsistencies in Florida all year long. Carolina's looking good. Carolina's really, really strong. But yeah, so good game it was nice to see Matthew Joseph get his first of the year for Ottawa. Claude Giroux scored. Dylan Gambrell got on the board for Ottawa early, but otherwise this was, 882 save percentage for Forsberg, ain't gonna cut it. 800 for Vasilevsky though. That's weird. He did not have a lot of work, so that should not have been that close. To your point, it was a little bit of a miracle, but it was just kind of bad goaltending night. A little bit weird there. Other notable games: Rangers won in a goalie duel last night, 1-0 over the Philadelphia Flyers. So both teams at least get a point, and Rangers get the extra point. Carter Hart versus Shesterkin was really interesting. Obviously, Shesterkin won that battle, but I mean, you're seeing early that Carter Hart, and this is what I kind of predicted, like with a much better defensive structure and focus from Tortorella, he's just going to excel. Block shots is a stat. To me, it's a mixed bag. Good that you're blocking them, but bad that you don't have puck possession. I mean, you got to block shots. You're not going to get possession back unless you're blocking something or getting the puck back. So chasing people around and hoping to get the puck is really tough. Like, guys are so fast. There's a lot more motion in the offensive zone now. If they're shooting from the point, particularly, the key is they're moving low to high, and they're trying to get point shots or that bumper shot in the power play. So you need guys blocking shots on the wings, like up high. They got to put pressure on the D on the point and the bumper. Offense from the sideboards has got to have pressure, and you just want to take away the shots from the D, because the D they're going to pinch in otherwise, which gives you an opportunity. It's like more of a 50-50 play. So if you turn a shot from the point into a 50-50 play where it's going to go either way 50% of the time, that's good. Like, you need block shots. Should Ottawa fire the coach or GM? I think the coach is under a hot seat here. I mean, this team, do they still have great goaltending? It's really interesting because of the family, right? Like, now the family is running it. And I think his daughter, like Eugene Melnick's daughters, are really actively now involved. I think that the coach could go. They're in a tough division, but they're not out of it. But I think DJ Smith is still a big candidate here. I think the coach in Anaheim has got to go. Sheldon Keefe, if you look at the Star, like the knives are out for him. This is not going to last long. There's one article I looked at, which is just ridiculous. This is just part of the problem in Toronto is armchair GMs. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Chrome tab. Yeah. So I don't know if there's copyright on this stuff. I don't know how that works. It's not video, but if you look at, would you you be the GM? What would you do if you were running the Maple Leafs? Okay. Well, that's typical Toronto. Rosie DiMano, struggling Maple Leafs rally around Mitch Martin and Sheldon Keefe after disastrous road trip, right? Like that's obviously bad. Should the Leafs have seen trouble coming, plus the market for Erik Karlsson? I mean, listen, they don't have great goaltending. Fire the Leafs coach after 10 games. Don't be ridiculous. Oh, Damien Cox actually being reasonable. That's interesting. But I don't know. I think they're a 500 team, but they're the bottom of a very tough division, right? So they can't play 500 hockey, and they're just so inconsistent on the ice. So the knives are out in Toronto, and that's going to happen. We should have been a little more specific and said block shots is a stat when you're at even strength. I'm not too familiar with the issue there, so maybe you can enlighten me. David Arthur, thank you for joining. Coach Frenchie is not on this broadcast, but will be tonight. And hey, Danny, Ottawa's going to be in the market soon. I think that there's going to be a change in coaching in Ottawa. I think the question is who gets canned first around the league. Like, you've got to think Vancouver's a problem. I think the guy, St. Louis, what is going on in St. Louis? They said they're not going to fire Berube, and I like Berube. They're struggling. But they also made a decision not to keep Husso, and Husso's been pretty good for Detroit. Much better than the other goalie. Good morning, Danny, for joining. David Arthur, we appreciate everybody joining. If you can, hit the likes and share this out. I know there's a few less people on the morning broadcast, but I appreciate everybody that joins and comments. What do you guys think about the upcoming schedule of the Detroit Red Wings? How is your team looking? And obviously, there's a lot of games going on. I mentioned last night. So the goalie duel between the Rangers and Philly, Rangers winning with that 1-0. Detroit's going to be facing them twice coming up, so that's going to be rough. Washington losing in overtime to a very, very good Vegas team, 3-2. And that was with I think that was with Washington's backup, and Charlie Lindgren was on. And Shea Theodore gets the overtime winner from Eichel and Pietrangelo. Eichel's got 7 assists on the season and 5 goals. So that's pretty good. Pietrangelo he had 3 assists last night. Dylan Strome working out really well in Washington. We know that Minnesota won 4-1 over Montreal last night, and a lot of you are Montreal fans, so that was not amazing. But Krill, the thrill, Kaprizov getting 2 more goals last night, Marco Rossi getting his first NHL assist. Connor Dewar, former captain of the Everett Silvertips, we're always excited to see him. He got an assist last night in that game against Montreal. What did you think of Connor Dewar? I mean, this is a guy we said he's going to make the NHL just on his sheer will alone. Not big. He's not exceptionally fast. He doesn't have anything other than sheer determination and maybe spite. He's yeah. Enortap, thank you for joining, by the way. I really appreciate seeing you in the morning. I think, let's see, the Montreal game last night was interesting. I'm glad that Suzuki scored. That was good. But Matthew Boldy, man, he's such a good player. And see Connor Dewar get his 3rd assist of the year is really satisfying. 8 goals on the season for Kirill Kaprizov. That's the second leading goal scorer in the NHL I was overlooking. So it goes McDavid, Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov, and then who? Gabe Vilardi. What? Gabe Vilardi. Tage Thompson might be suddenly up there. I don't know. I have to go back and check. Did he get his 8th goal against Detroit? He had 6 points, so I can't remember if he had 5 or 6 goals, but little surprising out there. And then Boston continuing to win 6-5 over Pittsburgh last night. The New York Islanders pulled a 3-1 win over Chicago. That was a good game for them. Suddenly, and they had really good puck movement last night, by the way. Jonathan Taves, 6 goals on the year. I don't know if anybody would have predicted that. Taves is looking pretty darn good. Seth Jones, I believe, is gone for an extended period of time. He had an injury, and he was not in last night's game. And you can see, he's by far Chicago's best defenseman. And not having Seth Jones is going to be really, really, really bad for Chicago. They had that little 4-game winning streak early, which was helpful. But man, having Seth Jones out, and I can't remember. Coach's job security, not the Maple Leafs focus. Okay. I don't know what that means. Erik Karlsson's doing real well, by the way. He's got some offense. And then Jesper Bratt. Woo, that was he's 10-game point streak. He's just killing it. This guy's much better than we could have ever imagined. I mean, he looked good as a rookie for them, and then even after, he always had like a really good motor, high speed, and just never stops. So those are all good things. Dallas thumping the Kings last night, but Gabe Vilardi, not before Gabe Vilardi. I think he got on the board again. Oh no, he didn't. They actually held off the third leading goal scorer in the NHL. Kaliev scored. That's what it was, and Kevin Fiala scored. So those are, okay moments for LA Kings, but man, Dallas is looking dominant. I mean, Rupee Hintz is really dominant. Robertson's a monster still. Seguin looks like he's playing much better. And then Pavelski is just leading that whole group. Really interesting what's going on there. Edmonton surging to the top of their division, and that's basically all around our friend Connor McDavid. Boldy has been better than I thought he would be. I thought he'd be like a Curtis Lazar type player. No. Boldy is a goal scorer, always has been. Curtis Lazar was never that to me. I always thought Curtis Lazar would be a third-line NHLer, and he's kind of a fourth-liner. Like, I think that's probably where he is good. I've never understood that pick by, I think it was Ottawa that drafted him. Or was it Buffalo? I can't remember. So we have lots of people in the chat, so I appreciate everybody joining. I'm sure I read an article they've hired an agent for the Ottawa Senators sale. Maybe. Does that mean Justin Bieber is going to buy it and then Austin Matthews will move there? What do you think of that? Yeah, Islanders are playing well, so that's good. Every time I see Kaliev, I get so angry. I wanted him with Pelche or the draft instead of Holmstrom. I'm going to tell you, the scouts were all taught he was a problem child in the OHL. He was not considered in shape. He was really lazy around practice. And one thing about the LA Kings is they do have a very good culture, and he responded to a tough culture, because they do have a tough culture there where they like try to push guys and develop them. And you can see if guys aren't on board, then they don't like look at, I don't know, Alex Turcotte's injury prone and he just didn't fit, but Kaliev is just accelerated past him. He's got as much talent as anybody in that draft. And he was always a big time goal scorer. But when he was very immature, but you can see he looks fit, and man, he's got great hands. So Enertab, you highlight a big point. I believe, and I think I said this, I think he's on a mission to score 50. And you can just see, and I think the other mission that he is in his head is 200 points. At some point, Connor McDavid is going to figure out how to score 200 points, because I think he looks at guys like Lemieux and Gretzky, and you might laugh and say that's impossible, but if anyone's going to do it, it's him, because he's a guy that's got more speed, more talent than anybody. He's got a style that's really difficult to deal with because he separates and reconnects with the puck. He never slows down. He always picks up speed while still maintaining control of the puck without just sticking on his stick all the time. Sometimes it's always on his stick. Even then, like, he's getting around guys, but that's puck placement and retrieval like no other player. He's such a unique player. And then those quick crossovers and tight crossovers and edges. He doesn't have a big stride, doesn't take up a lot of space, so he's able to get around defenders. In his head, he will score 50 goals, and I think it might be this year. You can see that's the mission he's probably on. So if he's healthy, he'll score 50, I think, at this point. And I think he's shooting for 200 points. He's a guy that always gets better at the end of the year, too. I believe that he's going to do that. I'm not sure what your question was, Corey, that I didn't answer. So if I have to go back, I'm probably not going to find it. They need another skilled defenseman. Is that it? I mean, Zaitsev is, Zub is in there, and Sanderson, Brandstrom. I don't know if is he hurt still and out? Yeah, for sure. McDavid is going to get a few trophies this year, I think. And I think he'll lead this team to the playoffs. David, your birthday is next week. Thanks, David Arthur, for joining. Really appreciate it. All right, we're 5 minutes before the hour. I get the feeling McDavid wants to sweep the awards this year. I believe you're right. I think he wants everything. He wants MVP, both MVPs, scoring leader, Rocket Richard, and I think he wants the Stanley Cup. And I think he won't stop at anything to get it. As long as he's healthy, he might do it. And you might see him get 150 to 200 points. And that's a 50-point range. I don't think he's slowing down. And I think he thinks he can pick apart any defense, and he might be right. He looks faster. He can get around anybody anytime he wants. It's ridiculous. Like, he's doing things in a different way than anybody's ever done. Yeah, so I think Corey's question, Danny, might have been around another skilled defenseman. You know, they've got Shabbat, they got Sanderson, Brandstrom's in the mix. I don't even know, is he playing right now? And Zub looks real good. Everyone wants another defenseman. They also have a great culture. I don't think it's bad to have one guy that has a reputation. We have tons of guys in the room that can correct his issues. So I don't know if you're talking about Kaliev, for sure. But Kaliev, you know, I think was a wild card to everybody. The reports out of Hamilton and the OHL were terrible. The scouts that I talked to were saying this guy's a complete cancer. The coach was not saying positive things. And LA was like, we have a strong culture. He's going to fall in line. Our guys like the beach. They all live at the beach in Manhattan Beach and Hermosa. It's a good lifestyle, but we work hard. And I think that's the LA Kings basically said. All right. Well, so we got 3 minutes before the hour. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please make sure to hit the likes and subscribe if you haven't already. I know we're a smaller audience in the morning. The coach has the live show tonight. We will put out an update. There will be no live on Friday for the Red Wings update, but we'll update the score with a post video. So check that video out and please like and share it. And that will be on the post-game fallout of the Washington Capitol game on Thursday and a preview of the Saturday game versus the New York Islanders. And then we know we have the Sunday game with the Rangers for Red Wings. So the Red Wings got a real tough week ahead. Everybody needs defense. No matter how many great defensemen you have or how many good defensemen you have, it's never enough. Like, it just doesn't work out that way. Yeah, Leafs, I've got a lot of problems. It's the makeup of that defense. It's the coaching style. I think it feels like Marner and Matthews are checked out at the moment. Like, this is a guy that scored 60 goals last year. Does he have 2 goals this year? Am I wrong? Does Austin Matthews have 2 goals? The goaltending's terrible. Not terrible. It's just like Samsonov's inconsistent. When he's on, he's on. When he's not, he's not. Colgren, I had high hopes would be a real good backup, but it doesn't look like you're not going to be a good backup at sub 900 save percentage. That ain't going to work. Thank you, Danny, for joining. I really appreciate that. So Leafs got problems. I like Morgan Riley. You know, Muzzin's been out, but he wasn't great initially. So they're falling back on guys like Sandin and Liljegren, and you just need a little bit of a different style back there to tighten things up. It's nice to have Senators podcast doing this. 1.5 goals, Michael. 1 was a fluky deflection. For Samsonov? Is that what you're talking about? I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, Samsonov's has been pretty good. He looked good in preseason, and I think overall he's pretty decent. But Colgren, I don't know. There's something off there. He's just young. You know, he's a new goalie. But Matthews. Got it. Oh, goals for it. Yeah, Matthews is something's going on there. This is what they've done in the past, right? Like, we saw the guy pout when he was I don't know. There's something going on there. Have they checked out on Sheldon Keefe? Not sure. It's kind of a country club over there still. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. Check out Coach Frenchie's broadcast tonight. I think, Enertap, are you going to be on the broadcast tonight? Feel free to comment in the chat. If I'm around, I'm happy to join. Just let me know, Coach Frenchie, and I will do that. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. We will have a post on Detroit Red Wings update on Friday around the same time, updating on the score from the night before against the Washington Capitals and previewing the weekend with the Islanders and Rangers games. And then got they want Babcock back. Well, they shouldn't have run him out of town with a nonsensical story. And this is a guy, honestly, like, do you not think that the Florida Panthers would be much better off with a guy like Babcock than Paul Maurice? I mean, Babcock is a world-class coach, and you don't have to love the guy. Who loves Scotty Bowman? Nobody. we have a weird attitude towards guys like him. Like, yeah, he's a little arrogant. The guy's successful and he wants to win. He prepares his team and he pushes guys to be better. And he's really smart technically. All you have to watch is him on, like those hockey broadcasts, and you're like, oh, this guy's like an elite genius hockey mind. And he's not like an old guy. Like, he would absolutely drive a team to success. I remember Austin Matthews complaining Zach Hyman was his line mate. What? Everybody loves Zach Hyman. Go look at Zach Hyman's production. The guy's like legitimately, like, everybody loves him. And you're Austin Matthews, you're complaining that you want to play with Mitch Marner or whoever. You're trying to call your shot. And you want to be on the power play, but show something. He's making Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews mature by, putting them in situations where they can succeed and then demanding they perform a certain way. That was Mike Babcock. And look at his record. It was not junk. Anyways, I still don't get the way Isles and Rangers are at each other once in an UBS. That's kind of weird. Major slip in the schedule. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Why is Detroit's bad defensive habits creeping up again like last year? First of all, they're very shorthanded on the forward lines. Andrew Kopp does not look great. He's not finding his stride, and you would have looked to him to be a plug. They didn't have Rasmussen in the last 2 games, and he's becoming really important on the forward check and the back check. His size is stick. They don't have Verana. They don't have Fabry. They don't have Bertuzzi. Like, they're just missing a lot of pieces, and that's a team that can't afford to miss those pieces. So I think, if the pressure, you could see that there was more separation between the forwards and the defensemen in the last few games. The Wild game was pretty good, but even then I thought they got lucky, and I thought Husso played real well. But defensive structure is broken down in Detroit for sure, and onus falls on the forwards. Like, they need to also be an offensive threat all the time. And the less threat they are, the more they're on their heels, or less they're carrying the puck. So I think there's a few things going on there. If they were healthy, then they'd be performing a lot better in both ends of the ice. I think that's just what you're seeing. Like, what team can lose 5-6 forwards and still perform well? And the one guy that's in there supposed to be chewing up minutes missed all of training camp, and he does not look great yet, which is Andrew Kopp. And frankly, I think Kopp's a third-line player that got second-line player money. Like, that's what you're going to find with this guy. Is this the next Steven Weiss signing? Yeah, maybe a new Senators coach. How's the Carolina Redwood line looking? Oh, California Redwood line looking. I haven't been tracking them. Well, they've been broken up because they haven't had Sundqvist in the lineup. Rasmussen had a 2-game suspension, and Soderblom's kind of struggled the last couple games. So I think when they put that line together, that's a great third line. But you've got to have a 1 and 2 line still. And right now they're just, they're missing a lot of those pieces on the top line. Perron's been playing good. I think Perron is consistently good, but he's not always offensively a threat. He got on the board in the 8-3 loss, and he looked like he was sparking them to have a comeback. It was 4-3 at one point with the Larkin goal, and then the wheels just fell off. The goaltending with Nedeljkovic is just not good enough, and the overall defensive structure has definitely got a lot to be desired. I'm sure Lalonde's, I would say, pulling his hair out, but he doesn't have any hair. He's bald. But so I think that that Redwood line, to answer the Wicked 50 cal, I think it looks great when they're together. Sundqvist is, really important to that team actually on the ice when you watch him, and Rasmussen's really important. And you just pulled out more pieces there. Like, he had the 2-game suspension for hitting Krejci with the stick, which is a really stupid move. Perron disappeared offensively for a few games, but then he looked real good in that game the other night. But when you're letting in 8 goals, that was not all defensive structure. Is definitely a part of it. Definitely goaltending with Nedeljkovic is not up to snuff. So I can't see that going past this year. I think they're hoping that they can accelerate Sebastian Cosa's development. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. We went a little bit over. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you on Friday. Oh, I don't know. Not for a while. Should Ottawa name their lines? That will make it awesome. Why not? It's always fun. It's up to you, Corey. You should name the lines. Who are on the lines? You got no Josh Norris, so that hurts. But otherwise, what are the lines called? Thanks, guys. Thank you, Intertap. Appreciate everybody joining. Sorry we went a little bit over. Check out the broadcast tonight on Hockey Nation Live, and I will post a Red Wings update on Friday about the game against Washington and then previewing the weekend against the Islanders and then the Rangers. Have a wonderful day.